Hello, good morning. We are Intermediate 11. We are Manijeh Verghese, Manuel Collado, and I'm Nacho Martin. This year, we are proposing this challenging label of Sub-Saharan spaceships. And let me introduce a bit the principal ingredients of this course. We are focusing again on the subject, its body and its mind, as the core of our architectural project. We consider architecture as a discipline aimed to improve the human faculties through certain amplifying powers. This year, those special or superpowers will come from new technologies. To be more specific, we are going to work with something that we are calling tech jewelry. There is a kind of architectural version of wearables technologies. From this small architecture fit to our scale, our bodies, we expand its size till come to a bigger scale, that is the scale of the building. The building understood as an amplified version of the formal and functional properties or the former object, that is the jewel that I mentioned before. We are going to assist this process, this journey from the smallest scale to the bigger scale through an absolutely innovative system that we are completely excited to use this year, that is inside that box, that bag, that later Manuel is going to explain more in depth. And it, of course, has a clear relationship with this idea of the digital environment that we are trying to propose. The second stimulating point for us this year is the place that we are going to go for work on it. That is Cape Town in South Africa, as a unique and booming society where digital processes are growing faster than physical infrastructure. And the final stage or point of this journey from the small architecture to the building is the creation of a bigger landscape, the creation of a community or a tribe organized around the subversive use of these digital techniques. Wearable technologies, probably you know them a lot because we are surrounded by them, probably more than we know. And they are absolutely interesting for us because they are proposing a totally new version of our bodies through apps, sensor, trackers, etc., etc. And they could be considered the perfect updated output of the Marshall McLuhan's theories on artificial extension of our natural faculties. But of course, our unit will become a kind of laboratory about them to propose new opportunities for these devices, mainly with the objective to fight the current conception of them as a mechanism of control for ourselves, for our bodies, and to go to embrace a new concept of sensory enhancers. We'll shape those electronic devices into something architectural in order to propose the property identity for our community, for our tribe, always having the wonderful reference of the craft from South Africa, its colors and its cultures. And to conclude a bit this first term about the definition of this small architecture, it could be like having a kind of hyper-technological environment around us, inserted in the tribal resources of the site, of the place, having the reference of the old tribes, but as well the new subcultures from Cape Town and Johannesburg. And this journey is something that we have tested before during the last years here at the AA. For example, 2 years ago, designing those amazing space helmets understood at reduced architectural experience around our heads, and the way we translate them into a bigger scale that were buildings that were clubs in Ibiza Island. Or for example, last year, the way we design a kind of body transformation and tattoos in our own bodies, and the way we transform them into bigger landscape of new communities of based around holistic practices in Goa, in India.
So in term 1, we have an exciting lineup of workshops that will focus on the synthesis of jewelry craft and wearable technologies. Lota Coho, the Madrid-based jewelry designer, will share their expertise on making objects out of precious metals, but using digital prototyping techniques like laser cutting and CNCing. They'll travel to London in week 3 to explain how they make their jewelry, and we'll have tutorials with each student to give us examples of how we can fabricate our pieces. We will then travel to Madrid in Open Week to work in Lota Coho's studio, and will manufacture jewelry prototypes using their facilities over an intensive 3-day workshop. We'll also meet with Special Project Studio, a pair of interactive designers based in London, who have worked with Nokia, Samsung, and BlackBerry to create a series of wearable devices. They specialize in invisible technology, showing how the importance of creating well-designed objects that slot seamlessly into our contemporary lifestyle. With their help, we will choose different technology to embed within our jewelry pieces and learn how to make them operable. Our unit trip will take place in January, where we will travel to Cape Town and Johannesburg in South Africa to discover the beautiful natural landscape there and the expanding urban environment in these 2 cities. South Africa is an example of steady growth within the African continent. It is a strategic territory facing rapid development, and the challenges of this expansion to be sustainable are clear. For us as architects, such a context means there is a need to rethink settlements and establish stable relationships between nature, urbanism, and social identity for the future. Additionally, in 2014, Cape Town was selected as the World Design Capital, which created a program of events, installations, and projects throughout the city around the central theme of Live, Design, Transform Life. The 4 headings within this brief relate to the unit's agenda for the year: African innovation within a global conversation, bridging the divide to reconcile disparity between communities, today for tomorrow, thinking of sustainable solutions for urban development, and finally, beautiful spaces for the beautiful things, objects, and crafts produced locally. Racial tension is still an issue grappled with in post-apartheid South Africa, and this image from 1982 shows how even areas like the beach were divided into segregated zones. It is important that students are aware of the history of this area and its current repercussions, and each project in the unit will examine how to deal with the political, cultural, and social context of the city, and take a position on these issues within this vibrant area. We'll also look at the festival Africa Burn, a Cape Town-based satellite of the Burning Man Festival. And here the lightweight festival structures are seen as hybrids between art, architecture, and tribal identity, which will force us to question the contemporary appropriation of traditional techniques and materials for Burning Man, and then its reinsertion into the South African context.
Okay, wow, I would love to do this first term. Then we'll jump into the second scale, because we've seen the body scale, the jewels, the augmented jewels. And for this unit, Inter 11, this year, the bigger scale will be spaceships. And through spaceships, we understand how to define a high sophisticated, high-tech device to, in a way, express architecture, symbolize architecture with such a technological prototype. Even if we have here the plan of the Millennium Falcon, this is not about designing flying devices. It's more about designing high-tech prototypes to interact with the body and with the jewels that you would develop during the first term. And then the second term would be about this interaction, how to control, how to draw accurately this type of interactions. And of course, our main reference, our first main source of inspiration will be architects facing future technology. And one of the greatest examples is, of course, Buckminster Fuller, when he pointed in the 60s that we are all astronauts, demonstrating his fascination about future technology and space race. We'll also look closely to this other example, this amazing house from Ant Farm, the house of the century, where they designed this lunar module, retreat lunar module was called at that time, equipped with the last technologies at that moment to explore the surroundings, to explore the wild landscape where it was landed, not with the idea of controlling it, but with the idea of become one with nature, which is one of the main, one of the core ideas of our unit in terms of defining the new relation with technologies. Then a more well-known example, you probably know this Walking City from Archigram, where Ron Herron dreamed about this idea of a nomad city within a spaceship body, and how graphically they managed to define this really specific world regarding spaceships. And as a final example, also, we closely look to the Pompidou, the Rich Rogers and Renzo Piano massive set of high-tech landed in the middle of Paris. Also as an expression, as a symbol of a last version or a last period of using technology in a certain way. And we will see that, why this building is expressing this idea of a final period of the use of technology. Then the second source for the unit of inspiration, if the core is going to be these high-tech architectures or architects dealing with high technologies, is going to be science fiction, but not any kind of science fiction. We look to some specific narratives, for example, like this case, which is the movie and documentary about the movie Dune from Jodorowsky, Moebius, and Chris Voss. You probably know the version from David Lynch, from the movie Dune, and this is like the first attempt. And what we liked from these guys, this team, was the creation of a real strong graphic identity. And that's what we are looking for the unit, Inter 11. How through these type of drawings, these are from Chris Voss, we managed to define a radical imagery combining these patterns, these colors, these psychedelic patterns, also with the idea of linking this type of work from Chris Voss with the idea of the crafts and the work and the color palette from the tribes in South Africa. And we'll go visit Chris Voss, because we are lucky because he's based here in London, and we'll go to visit his office, ask him about his process of defining this type of imagery, how he managed to combine color and this type of radical spaceships. Then the unit has we have really clear what type of spaceship we are going to produce. And that's why we have here this updated version of the Pompidou. This is a Pompidou from Shigeru Ban in France. And you can have, the idea of this updated version is how now such a museum is under a tent, such a light structure. And that's what we want to, that's the intention of the unit in terms of seeing festivals, as Manijeh mentioned before, festivals, rave tents, like this Psy-Trance tent from the Boom Festival in Portugal, as the perfect combination, the perfect settlement to hybridize digital technologies, light construction, and these type of communities, radical communities landed in a fragile ecosystem, no? Softly landed, which is one of the main ideas for the unit this year. This is not new for the unit because, for example, last year, some of our students achieved really nice projects. For example, like this case, Pietro de Rothschild, who created a deployable rave tent, housing a rehab program based in light and sound. And he became a real expert dealing with sound therapy and light therapy. And this other project from Ana Maria, who designed a huge bamboo structure to clean ourselves from the digital contamination, and how through a ritual she managed to define a whole process of cleaning ourselves from this digital world. And then, as Nacho mentioned at the beginning, this is the famous tool that, if we are talking about a high technological milieu, the unit started last year using the Oculus Rift, and we are being part of the program as developers of the Oculus Rift this year. And we managed to buy the new version, the version 2. So this is going to be one of the tools that is absolutely a need for the unit to become some sort of experts using this type of tool. In order also to understand how body can interact with the spaceships and with the interiors, and how the augmented duels also can be integrated with such a device.
This was an incredible.
And there's also a key tool to develop this type of goggles, which is the Unity. You probably know Unity as a software mainly dedicated to design video games, but we become some sort of experts also using Unity for architecture, to design architecture. And we have, we're lucky because we have the proper guy at the office now that will teach you a specific workshop during the second term. All these immersive technologies are not new for the unit, because last year, thanks to the work, for example, of Roman Lobgrove, who managed to create a whole immersive scenario using these 3D technologies of a breathing tribe, a breathing ritual within a tribe. So this was his work, and now you see more in depth what happened during the second term as workshops with Manijeh.
So workshops in term 2 will include a visit to Moritz Waldmeyer's studio. He has made wearable light installations that have been worn by the Black Eyed Peas and U2, and has also collaborated with fashion designer Hussein Halayan to create these spectacular constructions that exist somewhere between garments and wearable sculptures. We'll also visit No Brow Press, whose psychedelic illustrations have long been a reference for the unit, for their effective graphic communication and overall aesthetic in books like The Inkal and Biografiction. Although technical studies will always be part of your design project, we thought we would give you an idea of what this could entail this year. And so we'll begin by making technical drawings of our jewelry pieces that will show how they relate to the body with the same sophistication as a wearable device. And then we'll shift in scale to explore how these techniques and technology can be scaled up to become a lightweight temporary structure, which can range in complexity from these raised thatch pods in Africa Burn, to Mark Fisher's elaborate stage sets for U2, as seen here in this sketch, which was subsequently realized with Chuck Hoberman's scissor structure, creating an animated screen around specific control points that descend down from the arthropod structure. Other temporary structures include pavilions for biennales and expos, such as Thomas Heatherwick's Seed Cathedral for the 2010 Shanghai Expo, or installations like this. This is Pulse and Bloom, which was something that happened at the Burning Man 2014 festival, and these flower-like structures actually open and close as you plug into them according to the beat of your heart. This also continues the legacy of temporary structures within the unit as the perfect sites for body-scale installations and events. And this image here shows Andreas's project from 2 years ago for an inflatable nightclub of hedonistic activities, and that was awarded a TS High Pass in 2013. And also in Pietro's project, which Manuel mentioned earlier, where his TS explored how his project could be deployed across the beaches of Goa for a different type of trance experience. Finally, the portfolio for this year will take the form of a manual. Using examples like the Whole Earth catalog, we will use this format to create a standalone piece to explain the materials, kit of parts, assembly and disassembly of our wearable jewelry and temporary building for the production and display of local identity. We'll take inspiration from the 1950s graphic illustrated manuals for innovative technology at the time, as well as more contemporary manuals like this one by Special Project Studio that illustrates how technology can work alongside the portfolio to form one cohesive piece. We'll also look at the blueprint drawings used to construct the stage sets of Star Wars,
when an entire galaxy was engineered.
I don't know if you can
It's
hear
the
this.
never-before-seen, highly detailed architectural drawings behind the most iconic sets and vehicles in film history, painstakingly curated and magnificently reproduced.
And this book will also sit alongside our diverse reading list in the library upstairs. And this encompasses theory, case studies, art installations, and architectural projects.
And just to conclude, to show you a part of our work from our office, my 5 architects, just a couple of buildings that they are a bit like a kind of spaceship as well. For example, this kind of headquarters in the outskirts of Madrid for a new subcultures of young people, because it's a youth center with an immersive interior like this. Or another example of another building, like a kind of a spaceship landed in an old town in Spain, in Teruel. There is a public program concealing a huge immersive journey underground with a massive mix of different facilities.
And a bit about me, I'm the editor of AA Conversations and the curator of the AA Public Program, in addition to teaching Intro 11. I graduated from the AA, and I've worked for offices like John Paulson, Foster & Partners, as well as publications like Icon and Diseño. So, after this presentation and after this year of wearable technologies and Sub-Saharan spaceships, at the end of this year, this could be you.
Yeah, so please join Intro 11 if you want to use these type of things.
See you later.
Thank you.